Welcome to Together We Rise. This season, titled For the Parents We Are and the Kids They'll Be, we'll explore the joys, challenges, and transformative power of parenting, one honest conversation at a time.
Whether you're here to gain tools, share a laugh, or find reassurance, this is a space where imperfection is celebrated, connection is nurtured, and growth is always possible.
Each episode dives into topics that matter, from embracing the messy reality of parenting to fostering resilience, self-worth, and authentic relationships.
Together, we'll uncover practical insights, powerful stories, and the heart of what it means to parent with intention.
So, take a deep breath, settle in, and join us as we navigate this beautiful, complicated journey. One step,
one story,
and one lesson at a time. Welcome back for another episode of Together We Rise. With you here today is Tonya,
Maggie,
and Ben.
We're excited to dive into another parenting topic with you. Today is all about healing ourselves while parenting.
You know, this is like a deep topic, and so I think for us to start talking about this, we kind of have to identify, like, what do we even think parenting is, like, in the context of how we've been parented, and then also then how we're turning around and parenting our kids.
First, let me start by, I'm really grateful to even have been invited to talk about this and talk about my own experience in parenting. And as I think about parenting, I like to think of it in terms of like flying an airplane. So I have a wife, I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. And I think about it as my wife and I are the pilot and the co-pilot. We're cruising at 30,000 feet. We are the mechanics. And we're doing the oil change on the flight. We're out on the wing. We're the flight attendants that have to get the food and the drink and answer the call button. And we're the in-flight entertainment and the air traffic controllers. And all of that is to get 2 young people to some place that I don't know where that is yet. And when I know when we'll arrive and if that's the final destination. To me, that is parenting. It is assuming so many different roles, improvising and having to do a lot of different things without really knowing in real time or in the future, am I doing it right?
Yeah. You know, when you share that analogy, which I love so much, and I think anyone who's a parent is like, yep, that makes sense. But I do want to verify that it's your wife who's the pilot and you're the co-pilot.
Yes, and she is absolutely the pilot. I'm the really problematic like passenger who, you know,
yeah, it's really
requires a lot of attention.
3 children in the back.
It really is unfortunate. But
I'm teasing, but I think the thing that came up for me was like, is this what you expected before you became a parent? I'd like us to have a quick, honest conversation of the reality of parenting and the fantasy of parenting, the ideation of parenting. Even in my therapy journey, talking with kids who are like, I want to have a kid because I want someone to love me and I want to have an attachment to someone, and what we think parenting is versus getting into parenting and being like, holy cow, this was not the thing I was dreaming about when I thought about being a parent one day.
I did not think it would be so much not knowing. I didn't anticipate how much of it would be like, no idea if this is working. We'll just have to see, I guess. That was not what I planned for. I thought I would know more.
You know, when you're about to become a parent and people are like, your life is going to change. You have no idea, but it's going to fundamentally change. It's on the other side of that, you have no idea. I still have no idea. I'm working it out as I go along. And as I reflect on my parents, and I had just an amazing childhood, I've now recognized my parents were improvising as well, and it was a different time. I was born in 1980. The world was a different place, but parenting, I think, was as much we're going along and trying to figure this new world out and bring up 2 children in the Midwest and don't know what life will be like for them in the future. Probably some of the same themes that I'm experiencing with my children, but There's obviously a lot more turmoil and chaos, it feels like. But I'm sure my parents would have said the same thing even without social media and the internet and other technologies that we have to think about today with our children. But it's so much of it is really them just figuring it out.
It makes me think, we all raised differently, right? We may be raised in a healthy, adoptive household, and we're really excited to have a family of our own because we have a lot of great memories connected to family and the value of family. And I know a lot of people want to become parents because they want to be very different than their upbringing or very different than their parents were. And sometimes the fantasizing of, well, I'm excited to be able to provide XYZ for my kid or to go on vacations because I didn't have that as a kid. I think sometimes we get into parenting and we're like, oh, crud. Like, I was not prepared for the day-to-day versus the imagining on vacations and the Christmas morning wake-ups and some of the joy that is portrayed of parenting versus the real rawness of parenting.
Yeah, the real rawness of parenting, even those like magical moments like Christmas morning. I don't know about you guys, but like I get about
magical.
2 seconds of magic and then the magic is gone and it's chaos. And like vacations, like yeah, vacations are wonderful and beautiful and there's so much work when you're a parent. Like I just feel like every single thing, even if it's like such a beautiful part of parenting, is still like really hard and heavy in some way. It's a lot of work no matter what.
All right, I want to do a deep dive.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Let's go there.
If you were to put all the things that it requires to be a good parent on paper, or all the things that you're going to have to go through. In the first stages, it's lack of sleep. And then it's changing diapers, and then it's daycare, and then it's when they get sick, and then it's going to cost you over their lifetime X. And if you want them to, if you have the ability to save for college, or that's an expectation, or you want to provide vacations, if you put on paper all the things that is required to be a parent and all the things that you are sacrificing of yourself, of your time, of your energy, of your youth, of your finances, of your resources, on paper it is pretty daunting.
Yeah.
It's when you're in it that you recognize the you're part of an unbroken chain of people. You're part of an unbroken chain of your ancestors, and it's a crazy life moment. It sort of crystallizes your mortality, but it is you don't really know how you're going to be a parent even when you become a parent, and then you're in it.
Once you're in it, you're in it, right? And I think for every parent, once they make that commitment and they're there, they care deeply about the development and the outcome of their children. And I think one of the things as moms that we've talked about a lot, and I'm okay, even if my kids rewatch this episode, and I'll talk to them many times in life about this, is that I think for a lot of us who became parents never really questioned, do I want to be a parent? This long list of things, these maybe sacrifices and giving parts of myself, and the no sleep, and the nursing, and the body changes, and all these things, am I signing up and want that? Like, are we allowed to have a conscious decision about that, and how we're preparing next generations to have conscious decisions around that? And I think for the first time ever, we have an era and a generation who is saying, I don't have to get married. I don't have to have kids. I don't have to do these very standardized things that for a long time the world told me I had to do. Tell me your guys' thoughts on that.
Ben, when you were talking about that long list of things, I was thinking like if I could go back and see that long list of things and then decide to be a parent or not be a parent, I probably would have been like, maybe not for me.
Yeah.
But now that I know these 3 little humans who I've put into the world, I would choose that, every single day, all the time, because of these 3 incredible humans that I have. But I think it speaks to that a little bit of like, we kind of make this choice and make this leap without really knowing. And I think you could also hand somebody that list and be like, it doesn't sound that bad. You get a kid out of the deal. And then they're like, oh gosh, this is actually really, really hard. Like, you can't really know how hard it is until you're actually in it. So sometimes I think like, even if you make the choice to be a parent, it's not really like an informed choice because you don't really know how hard it is until you are actually in it.
Yeah, it's I'm in it, and I'm so glad that I'm in it, and it is a choice. I wanted to have children, and I'm glad that I did, and my life is forever altered by it. But it is not something like a car that you can test drive, and if I don't like this model, I can. It is, you're making a lifetime commitment, and it's hard not to take that lightly, and to make that with one person for whom maybe later you're not, you're separated, divorced, there's split households, which mine is a split household, and we have a great relationship. It just creates a lot of challenges in life and opportunities, but I think we have to talk about the challenges as much as the opportunities, the good parts about it as much as the parts that are difficult, because parenting should be difficult.
Yeah.
It should be rewarding and fulfilling, but it's not easy. And I think that I hope people can identify with the fact that it is not an easy thing to be. It's not just a title or a label, it's a being, it's a thing that you're hopefully one is actively involved in.
Yeah, I think I'm going to highlight this core thing you're saying is that it's not easy, because it's not easy. And I think the reason that it's not easy is because there's not one way of doing it. There's not a script for it. There's not a handbook. And it's related to you and your potential partner's values and what you want for your kids and your beliefs and your philosophies. But I think it's also not easy because we still remain human as the parents. And I think this topic really is intending to dive deep into the fact that I'm actually still human in relationship to this dynamic at play, which means I still maybe have needs. I may have mental health stuff going on. I may have stressors going on. I may have my own generational childhood wounds still going on. How do you start to navigate through that?
We have to acknowledge what we're carrying into these relationships. And I think having an awareness of like, what are the things that I'm bringing into my relationship with my kids that are at play in lots of different ways. So I think so much of this is having that sense of being able to self-reflect, being able to stay rooted in a sense of awareness, being really curious about like, why was this hard for me? Where did this come from? Why did this conflict or this disagreement between me and my child become so big for me? Where does that come from? I think that's a big piece of this, having that understanding that we're human, that we come with all this stuff.
Yeah, the human aspect. Good parents can have bad days. They can get angry. I shouldn't even put a label around good parents can be bad. People can get angry. I try and tell my kids sometimes when I do get angry, it's hard to tell an 8 and a 12-year-old, I might be upset. That's more of my trauma than what you're doing. And I'm very open about this, and so we can do a deep dive into this as well. I'm a person with major depression and a co-occurring substance use disorder where I'm a recovering alcoholic with about 10 and a half years of sobriety. And so navigating those feelings and those realities with my children, where it's being very open about this is just part of the human condition. And I have really good days and bad days, and making sure that my kids know that I don't want them to think that I'm on this pedestal. I want them to really know that I walk on the ground and I am flawed, and I have every day is an opportunity for me to make good decisions. Sometimes I don't. I really try and let them know that I'm human. I make mistakes. They're human. They make mistakes, and it's an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah.
I'm curious if that was your experience as a kid. I think that our generation of parents maybe does this a little bit differently than the way that we were parented. When I was listening to you talk, like I do a lot of that with my kids too, to say like, this is my stuff right now. Like I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, I'm overwhelmed. It is not you that is the problem in this moment. This is my stuff that I'm dealing with. And the way I'm showing up is not because of the way you are, it is because of the way I am. I don't know that those messages were given to me as a kid. Like, I don't think my parents were like, hey, this isn't about you, this is about me. I always felt like it was about me, right? Like, you're upset right now probably because of me and what I'm doing right now. And maybe my kids will grow up and say that same thing, who knows? But I feel like that's something that I've been really intentional in my parenting, to kind of like own my stuff. And so I'm curious if that was like your experience as a kid.
I mean, I'm very lucky to have the parents that I do, and I know that's not everybody's story. As I try and reflect, I have a lot of blind spots, only because it's so far in the rearview mirror, and I was going through it in real time and not observing it. I was experiencing it. My parents had, I think, a high degree of emotional intelligence, not where it's, hey, Dad's had a long day at work. This is more of me experiencing anxiety and not you because you took a permanent marker on the wall. But they expressed themselves in a way that it helped me understand sort of the world around me versus maybe how their parents were, World War II, very stoic, just a very different way of not showing vulnerabilities or certain emotions or allowing for certain emotions to be expressed, rather repressed. And so I do feel that the way I parent is different than the way my parents did in terms of letting my kids know I have issues. We all do.
Yeah.
I try and name it. I let them ask questions about it, to really let them know there might be things that I'm upset about, but it's not, you're not bad. It's not because you're doing bad things. I probably had a rough day, and my kids love the show Bluey.
Yeah.
So
right?
good.
It's great. The parents, Bingo and Chili, they drop everything for their kids. They have every answer for their kids. They do every fun activity for their kids. They engage fully with their kids. And I'm not that. And I try and not use that as the measuring stick, but let my kids know that, sometimes all they want is my time and attention, and sometimes the thing I don't have the energy for is to give more time and attention. But how do I express that to them in a loving, caring way where they still feel worthy of that? And that's the needle I have to thread, and I think it's really difficult.
And I think the thing that resonates for me is I think I'll have continual healing to do throughout every developmental stage of my children's life, because I can think now who I'll be as them being teenagers and having more autonomy and agency, and I'm already I gotta deal with some stuff personally to prepare for that. How do I prepare for them going off to college, into the workforce, and not being an empty nester, right? There are wounds that, as much as I feel like I have spent a lot of time being reflective and aware and healing some of that, that simply just get reopened by having experiences with our kids.
I don't know how I'm going to do when they go to college, because again, I'm in it with young preteen children. And as they get older, I'm going to get older. The parent I was 8 years ago is not the parent I'm going to be 8 years from now. And I think recognizing that, being able to be okay with that, is as much of the unknown as I don't know what I'm going to be like as a parent.
Are you comfortable in the unknown? You just let it ride out?
It's not that I just let it ride out. It's, I don't know how much of it I can control. And
because you're not an Enneagram 8.
No.
You can control it all.
No, I'm just a non-genius eccentric, which means I'm bizarre. But I try and accept the fact that I don't really know what that's going to be like, because when I do reflect on back in my childhood, a lot of the unknowns, there were a lot of knowns for me. There were a lot of expectations that now that when I look back, they were good expectations, I guess. But a lot of expectations, and that's because my parents were dealing with the unknown. How do they deal with a child who might want to take a gap year? How do they deal with a child who may want to not go to college? And that was the expectation. And if they go to college, is that just checking a box, or is it because it's really what they want? And they were going through as much of the unknowns and what they wanted, what was best for me. And I'm trying to navigate that with my children. What I think is best for them. They may someday say that's not what I want, and then those are just conflicting emotions, and I have to be really okay with having a conversation with them about what they want and versus what I think that they want.
I think that's a really important kind of theme in some of this, is recognizing and acknowledging that we are not our kids and that our expectations for our kids might not match with what they want out of life. And so how do we kind of differentiate those things? And I think about, you said your parents had expectations for you that turned out to be, good and helpful. And I think I had the same experience, that like the expectations that my parents had for me set me on a path for success. And fortunately for me, matched with a lot of like what I wanted for myself. But if they did not match with
Right.
what I wanted for myself, how hard that would have been to, wrestle with, am I disappointing them? Am I letting
Sure.
them down? Am I going to be able to say, okay, it's your life, kid. Like you get to decide.
I want to think I could say that, but I don't think that's going to be me. I don't know. Or maybe it is. I think when you become a parent, much of it is you try and control what you can control. I think also, like my parents, I'm trying to remove obstacles for my kids, and I don't know to what extent which obstacles which ones are the helpful ones to move and remove, and which ones are the harmful ones later on in life that they don't know how to deal with adversity because you've removed those. You've flattened them as much as possible because you want what's best for them.
If we feel like our biggest priority is being a good enough parent, you even said whatever we define that as being, which I think all parents want that. Like no parent wakes up and is like, yeah, I'm just gonna be kind of crappy today. Like we all want to be really good parents, and then our kids maybe get into legal trouble or choose a different path or don't go to college when that was our expectation. How we navigate those waters without it tying back to being about us.
Well, one of the things that I think about is like, okay, if I think about where I've landed in life, am I going to give all of the credit to my parents for where I've landed?
You give zero credit.
They get none of the credit. No, I'm just kidding. They do get some, but like I'm not going to give all of that to them.
Yeah, we texted your dad today.
We did. I asked a question. I needed some advice.
Yeah.
I needed some perspective. So in some ways, like I want to be able to have my kids, like they're going to live their life, and I have to recognize like a lot of that's up to them and what they do. Because so much of my life has been up to me. Like my parents gave me guidance, they gave a foundation, but ultimately what I chose to do with that is what has gotten me to where I am in life. Everything that you are is because of who you are, and so I think that's one of the ways that I kind of think about that.
My daughter, who I have with my wife, and then my stepson, I've been in his life, he's my son in every sense of the word. I've been in his life since he was 1.5. But with my daughter, I like to joke, when she does something really funny, that's your dad's genes. Or, it's critical of me. It's like, that's your mother's genes, right? We make jokes. But I finally found myself the other day saying, what you just did, which was funny, or she did something really incredible. I was like, that is you, 100% you. And I found myself reinforcing, you're 50% me, you're 50% your mother, but what you're doing is 100% you. There's nothing about my DNA right now that is making you do that. It just so happens that two people came together and produced this child, and I could kind of see her like yes, that what you did and the way you did it, or she can make friends anywhere with anybody. I was like, that is not me, that is not your mother, that is all you. And acknowledging, I'm getting, my hair's tingling, and I like to say that to my son as well, you're none of my blood, but influenced by my being in his life, like when he does great things, like that is you. And I think that was sort of an epiphany just the other week, where it was, I need to make sure that my kids know that when they do something, like, that's funny because that's a similar trait to your father or your mom or me. That is 100% you. And I don't want them to think I'm half my dad or half my mom, and therefore I have to be a certain way. I really need to start enforcing that when they do something, and it really is them doing it, and they deserve the credit for it and the praise and the celebration.
And I think what you're speaking to, Ben, is like this idea of individuality, which is also like, I am an individual too. And we're tied together in a lot of ways, but we also get to be individuals, which means that we get to have individual experiences, we get to have individual expressions. And so when I think about this parenting while healing and being on this journey, is like being able to be an individual, not have to be perfect, and say, I'm going through my own process, or I'm going to take a deep breath because this frustrates or irritates me. and we are all trying to be the best versions of ourselves when we show up. That's the part of healing while being in relationships.
When we hold space for ourselves to work on things, what we're communicating to the people around us is that I believe that people get that. I believe that people get space to work on things. And so if you're not perfect at this and you're still working on it, that's okay in this family, right? And that's such a beautiful message to give kids, because kids are constantly working on things. They're constantly growing. So we need to tell them that message, that you get time to figure this out.
Yeah, and I think what resonates, and so I want to kind of wrap it up as we talk about this, is in the same way of like, it's a hard day at work, and so I get to I need some time to heal or rejuvenate or restore, or I got into a car accident, so I might need some time to heal, rejuvenate, restore. I think it's the same process of addressing our own mental health as parents or our own needs. And I've heard you both say showing up and being vulnerable about that, like not stigmatizing it and saying, yeah, these are things that I'm experiencing in life and I want to have an open dialogue, because likely you or someone you care about will also experience some of these things, and how we show up in relationship to support people matters.
Yeah, and I like to think of it this way, and I tell this to my kids, and I try and say it in a variety of ways that they understand it, but that at the end of the day, we are all complex people trying to navigate the best we can in a complicated world, or vice versa. We're complicated people trying to navigate our best in a complex world. And just to say, I don't have all the answers, I have issues, I openly admit that and talk about it and try and help frame it for them so that they understand it, so that they can also, if they need to share anything with me, they can, and do it in a way that's safe or that they don't feel crosses a boundary. But I like to think that we're all just trying to navigate the best we can, and that looks differently for everybody.
You know, I think so much of the disconnect over generations between parent and children is this hierarchy. And I think as we continue to level the playing field appropriately, we give our kids a lot of the skills and growth they need to be able to start to navigate the world around them. And I think those are beautiful gifts that look very different over the generations. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here today and having a really deep conversation on this. I think the more we can continue to have these conversations and be vulnerable, the more it shows everybody else they can too. Thanks for being with us today.
Next time on Together We Rise.
It kind of models that we're like imperfect, right? And that even when things are not well, or we've had a kind of moment, that like it's not the end of the world.
Thank you for joining us. We hope today's episode left you feeling inspired, encouraged, and maybe even a little lighter.
Remember, resilience isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, staying curious, and building stronger connections one moment at a time.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with a fellow parent or caregiver who might need the same reminder. Together, we can create a community that uplifts and empowers family everywhere.
Until next time, take care of yourself and your family. And never forget, the small, imperfect steps you take today are shaping the legacy you'll leave for tomorrow.
This series is brought to you by Tanager and the Meraki Institute of Learning. For more information, please visit tanagerplace.org.